Welcome back. Now, still speaking about the plans for the End Bad Governance protest, there have been guidelines set by the IG of Police Olukayode Egbetokun. Now, let's take a look at this video.
We acknowledge the constitutional right of Nigerian citizens to peaceful assembly and protest. However, in the interest of public safety and order, we urge all groups planning to protest to provide necessary details to the Commissioner of Police in the state where protest is intended to take place. To facilitate a successful and incident-free protest, they should please provide the following information. 1. Proposed protest routes and assembly points. 2. Expected duration of the protest. 3. Names and contact details of protest leaders and organizers. 4. Measures to prevent hijacking by criminal elements, including key identifiers for possible isolation of potential troublemakers.
A lot has been said for and against the protest, including the fact that some would say, I believe the IGP had also said that there were reports that foreign mercenaries have in some way planned to hijack the protest. But we'll get into the details proper shortly. We're joined this morning by legal practitioner and former Minister of Communication, Adebayo Shittu. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
We'll be joined much later by another legal practitioner. But starting off with you, sir, I mean, this is drama that Nigerians do not maybe need at this time, but it's conversation that is important to have. The police have come out to give guidelines on how this protest should be carried out. They have first said that they acknowledge that Nigerians have a right to protest. Given these guidelines that may in some way limit the effect of the protest, is that not taking away from this right?
Well, there's no law without exceptions. For instance, if you have a right to walk, you don't have a right to push me off the road. We all have our rights, and there are limitations to law. Particularly in the case of Nigeria, where we are in a democracy. Democracy has its qualifications, it has its limits. The fact that we are in a democracy also means that there must be rules to guide the practice of democracy. For instance, you can't say because we're in a democracy, the INEC should obey your own limited perspectives of how elections should hold. So I want to particularly commend the Inspector General of Police. What he has done is really novel. We have had protests in the past where the police would start by being combative and would, just assume that everybody will be riotous. In this case, they are saying, because we have had an NSAS protest in the past in Nigeria, which became riotous, which became destructive, and particularly it was destructive against public property, not even against government property as such. We saw what happened in Lagos, where private businesses were destroyed, private, houses were destroyed. Again, the judiciary was invaded in Lagos here. The house or the palace of the Oba of Lagos was invaded. I mean, how do you compare or, look at the fact that you are protesting against the police, essentially? The headquarters of the Nigerian Police is not in Lagos. It is in Abuja. You didn't go to protest against the police establishment, from its headquarters. What you decided to do was to go to the house or the palace of the Oba of Lagos to destroy the place. You went to, the judiciary courts were destroyed, in Abuja here, private, businesses, including, restaurants and all of that were destroyed. So there must be limitations, there must be rules to guide whatever you want to do. I mean, we are all Nigerians, and the fact that some people decide to protest, we cannot prevent them from protesting, in the real sense. But again, they must not come and invade my private property, for instance. They must not also insist that my business should not open. I mean, these are very important things.
But do you support the idea of a protest? And
you see, you have to look at it. I mean, talking, strictly and objectively, when you start by saying that you want to protest against, you want to end bad governance. That mischievously implies that you want to remove the government, which in itself is a treasonable act.
No, but it doesn't. Ending bad governance doesn't mean
What is the perspective of bad governance?
The idea, I mean,
that they are protesting against.
So it depends on who. I mean, like they say, if the shoe fits you, wear it. So if a person feels that they embody bad governance in Nigeria, that's the only way that it should be triggered. But if the idea is, I want to end bad governance, I want to end impunity.
How do you end it? You have to. I mean,
it doesn't necessarily mean removing a person.
No,
from
what
office.
does it mean? What does
it
mean?
It means reminding the person that they must govern
properly. That is
properly.
not a reminder.
No, I mean, that's the way that it could be seen.
No. I mean, your restrictive interpretation must not be imposed on all Nigerians.
I fail to understand the direct correlation between ending bad governance.
I mean, what is your understanding? What is in the perspective
ending bad governance in
Nigeria?
Nigeria? Right. That's what it means. Simply.
What does it mean?
Okay, so maybe to give some context to that, it might not necessarily mean removal of the government. It might be also a readjustment of the cabinet. There are people who would say that the current cabinet hasn't worked. We have the ministerial update.
Look, democracy, particularly what we are practicing in Nigeria, means we have a federal government which in itself is not about the executive alone. We have the executive, we have the legislature, we have the judiciary. If we assume that the judiciary is to really be the arbiter when there are conflicts, you look at what we have as a presidency, the cabinet, the federal cabinet. It is not the only arm of government, particularly with the presidency, which was elected. More importantly, we have our representatives in the National Assembly. There's no Nigerian who does not have a representative in the National Assembly, either as a senator or House of Rep. They are to be your mouthpiece. You cannot take laws into your own hands.
Yeah, but I don't know if we're understanding things the same way. There's a reason people get disgruntled. There's a reason that a people generally get upset at the way that the system is run. It's mostly because they've lost faith in those who are meant to represent.
So what do you do? What do you do in the circumstance of our democracy?
And that's why the Constitution allows for a peaceful protest.
But I mean, if you are protesting, insofar as you can guarantee necessary restrictions. Like it is often said
of staying alive on the commencement of the protest, to see the places that people are gathering and ensure that the protests across the country are entirely peaceful.
All right. And a follow-up to that would be your reaction to what the former minister here has said regarding President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's time in office. What are your thoughts on how he has fared so far?
Confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Confirm you can hear me.
We can hear you, yes.
I'm saying that for the IG to say that for anyone to protest, the person has to come forward and provide certain information. That is not tenable, because that would mean laying a precedent. Or is it only applicable to this particular protest? Have they been setting these conditions for other protests? So let the IG focus on what is important. And if I could just quickly respond to what Mr. Adebayo or Shittu has, some of the things I heard him say in the course of his interview. I have a problem with people who have been privileged to hold positions in this country, and I hope he is listening to me. I respect him as a senior lawyer in the country, but when he speaks in this manner, it reminds you of the predicament that young people have found themselves in this country. That we have, people occupying leadership positions, past or present, who are basically living in denial. For him to say that calling for an end to bad governance amounts to treason, to say the least, is quite unfortunate. We must find a way in this country to caution ourselves as leaders and citizens from making comments that are inciting. Nigerians have the right to demand an end to bad governance. I am aware that Mr. Shittu had served under the Buhari regime, even though at some point he seems to have fallen out with the former president. But that was the regime that oversaw the slaughter of Nigerians, the murder of hundreds of Nigerians. People were killed, people were arrested and detained. The country was entirely insecure. But Buhari ruined and destroyed this country. So before they begin to dictate to us how to tell the government, the current government, to behave, they should start by apologizing for the role they played under the former government. And let us be serious about this matter. Anybody who says that Tinubu is doing well is not being sincere with himself, either herself, because Tinubu himself knows that he has been nothing but a colossal failure. What is the legacy? This president has been in office for 1 year. 1 year is a good enough time. It is ample time for any president that has the interest of the country to set things in the right direction. Rather, what we have seen is a clear state capture, vicious state capture. We are seeing the personalization of governance. We are seeing the undermining of democratic institutions. You have a situation where, for example, the president's son, or who in some sense appears to be the first son, as I choose to call him, basically takes precedence over ministers in public functions. You see him running all over the president everywhere. And the same thing for Olukayode Egbetokun, who is even coming out in public spaces to be making ridiculous statements. These people are basically telling you, of course, they told us it was his stone. The point I am making, I need to emphasize why this is important. This is not a pedestrian matter. Why this is important is that if you mean well for the country, it is not just about your policies. Even your body language as president will convince people that you mean well. But we have a situation where inflation has become very abominable. This president, under him, the tariff of electricity has been increased. They claim they have removed subsidy, which is deceitful. Mr. Shittu has also alluded to that deceit by saying that Tinubu has removed subsidy. But we know, all of you in this studio know that Tinubu has paid billions for subsidy. As I'm talking to you now, fuel queue in Lagos is terrible. People cannot find fuel to buy.
All right, Mr. Effiong.
Across the country, Nigerians are buying fuel up to 1,300 naira today.
Mr. Effiong,
and yet we cannot afford cost of basic commodities. And somebody will come to a studio and say the president is doing well.
All right, kindly hold on. Kindly hold on, so we could also have Mr. Shittu respond. All right, I think you've made really strong points there, and he has a right to respond. So let's go back to the former minister. He, of course, has alluded to his perspectives, and of course, starting from the former administration. Yeah. And also, I did ask a question before that you didn't answer. If the president has removed fuel subsidy, so you can respond to Inibehe, Effiong, and also talk about fuel subsidy.
Talk is cheap. Nobody is more patriotic than me. I can assert that. All right. I've been in office
of staying alive on the commencement of the protest, to see the places that people are gathering and ensure that the protests across the country are entirely peaceful.
All right. And a follow-up to that would be your reaction to what the former minister here has said regarding President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's time in office. What are your thoughts on how he has fared so far?
Confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Confirm you can hear me.
We can hear you, yes.
I'm saying that for the IG to say that for anyone to protest, the person has to come forward and provide certain information. That is not tenable, because that would mean laying a precedent. Or is it only applicable to this particular protest? Have they been setting these conditions for other protests? So let the IG focus on what is important. And if I could just quickly respond to what Mr. Adebayo Shittu has, some of the things I heard him say in the course of his interview. I have a problem with people who have been privileged to hold positions in this country, and I hope he is listening to me. I respect him as a senior lawyer in the country, but when he speaks in this manner, it reminds you of the predicament that young people have found themselves in this country. That we have people occupying leadership positions, past or present, who are basically living in denial. For him to say that calling for an end to bad governance amounts to treason, to say the least, is quite unfortunate. We must find a way in this country to caution ourselves as leaders and citizens from making comments that are inciting. Nigerians have the right to demand an end to bad governance. I am aware that Mr. Shittu had served under the Buhari regime, even though at some point he seems to have fallen out with the former president. But that was the regime that oversaw the slaughter of Nigerians, the murder of hundreds of Nigerians. People were killed, people were arrested and detained. The country was entirely insecure. But Buhari ruined and destroyed this country. So before they begin to dictate to us how to tell the government, the current government, to behave, they should start by apologizing for the role they played under the former government. And let us be serious about this matter. Anybody who says that Tinubu is doing well is not being sincere with himself, either herself, because Tinubu himself knows that he has been nothing but a colossal failure. What is the legacy? This president has been in office for 1 year. 1 year is a good enough time. It is ample time for any president that has the interest of the country to set things in the right direction. Rather, what we have seen is a clear state capture, vicious state capture. We are seeing the personalization of governance. We are seeing the undermining of democratic institutions. You have a situation where, for example, the president's son, or who in some sense appears to be the first son, as I choose to call it, basically takes precedence over ministers in public functions. You see him running all over the president everywhere. And the same thing for Olukayode Tinubu, who is even coming out in public spaces to be making ridiculous statements. These people are basically telling you, of course, they told us it was his stone. The point I am making, I need to emphasize why this is important. This is not a pedestrian matter. Why this is important is that if you mean well for the country, it is not just about your policies. Even your body language as president will convince people that you mean well. But we have a situation where inflation has become very abominable. This president, under him, the tariff of electricity has been increased. They claim they have removed subsidy, which is deceitful. Mr. Shittu has also alluded to that deceit by saying that Tinubu has removed subsidy. But we know, all of you in this studio know that Tinubu has paid billions for subsidy. As I'm talking to you now, fuel queue in Lagos is terrible. People cannot find fuel to buy.
All right, Mr. Effiong.
Across the country, Nigerians are buying fuel up to 1,300 naira today.
Mr. Effiong,
and yet we cannot afford cost of basic commodities. And somebody will come to a studio and say the president is doing well.
All right, kindly hold on. Kindly hold on, so we could also have Mr. Shittu respond. All right, I think you've made really strong points there, and he has a right to respond. So let's go back to the former minister. He, of course, has alluded to his perspectives, and of course, starting from the former administration. Yeah. And also, I did ask a question before that you didn't answer. If the president has removed fuel subsidy, so you can respond to Inibehe, Effiong, and also talk about fuel subsidy.
Talk is cheap. Nobody is more patriotic than me. I can assert that. All right. I've been in office and I've distinguished myself. I mean, no matter what it was. Now, let me start with his, critique of the Inspector General of Police, conditionalities. If somebody makes one statement today as required by the condition of that time, and tomorrow he makes an improvement, should he be criticized or should he be commended? And he's a lawyer. If you go to court, do you start quoting the 1993 Constitution or the 1963 Constitution? Is it what is relevant? What is relevant with regard to what the police have been doing is the most current of their directives, which is a novel idea and which must be commended by everybody. So I want to believe that what the Inspector General of Police has done is the current situation of the police with regard to the protest which, is being planned. All right. With regard to the last, he tried to condemn the past administration. I don't have any apology of my, perspective of my contribution. I was a minister between 2015 and 2019. I don't know what I have done wrong, if he has any ideas. But I distinguished myself and I thank God that I had contributed. I don't have any apology about my role. With regard to the alleged killings, he said the Buhari administration, killed a lot of people. I mean, these are statements out of perspective. I don't know what evidence he has.
I mean, there was the at least for example, the
NSAS protest.
Not just the NSAS, the Zaria massacre in 2015.
What happened
the
in
Shiites, that according to official reports, up to 500 Nigerians were killed.
Let me tell you. What happened in Zaria, the so-called Shiite, protest or strike? was it not more of, called suicide for people to go and confront the armed forces?
So 500 Nigerian
Is it
citizens
500?
were,
You are a journalist.
Yeah,
you are supposed to give, verifiable evidence.
What is the official number?
What is the? Am I in the police and are you in the police?
I'm quoting what the official figures were.
Which is the official figure? Which official gave you those figures?
What? So how many figures? If I'm wrong,
if there was an official figure and it was announced, I probably would know. But I don't know of these official figures.
So we don't know how many.
Just announce the figures to incite public.
But isn't it worse? Isn't it worse that you agree that Nigerians died in Zaria that day, but we don't know how many?
We don't know how many people die because of wrong decisions by even those who.
That's what I'm saying.
Involved.
But isn't it worse?
If the armed forces and you go and confront them, or the police, you go and confront them for whatever reason. Okay. You go and say that there's a path they should not come. They should not.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, isn't it worse that we don't even know how many Nigerian lives were lost that day?
Otherwise, you wasn't the situation.
Let's take the conversation.
You are in a very critical position that whatever you say must be measured in such a way that it will not aggravate our position.
All right, sir. Let's take the conversation away from Zaria to the NSAS protest, because that was the yardstick by which this protest has been judged.
Yes.
Is there any justification for the killings,
killings
that happened at the NSAS
Which
protest?
Killings?
So are you saying categorically that nobody was killed at the NSAS protest?
Let me tell you. If in the name of any protest you go and start burning properties, private property, public property.
No, sir. It wasn't what we're talking about. It's what happened on the 20th of October.
Let us agree that all of us here do not have all the facts.
Sir, but we did see videos. There were videos.
I don't know what video you saw. I have not seen any such
We saw
video.
live stream videos, sir.
Let me tell you, tomorrow, and that is why some of us are warning against this planned protest. People will take laws into their hands and they expect to be treated, not as criminals.
Sir, there were Nigerians, young people sitting on the ground, waving the Nigerian flag and singing. There were videos.
It is not enough to wave Nigerian flag. You must not be destructive in whatever you do. You're right. Has limitations.
So we're not talking about the hoodlums. We're talking about a particular incident.
Could you distinguish between hoodlums and non-hoodlums in a riotous situation?
And what do you think about the ECOWAS court having found Nigeria, the federal government, culpable on
that's not my business. I am not a lawyer to the government. I was not part of whatever ECOWAS did.
All right.
Let's bring in Inibehe.
As far as I'm concerned, I want verifiable evidence.
All right, Inibehe.
And we must be very careful when we talk in platforms like this, because the people are listening. And they will assume that whatever they hear from you are the gospel truth, and they may not be.
Okay, Inibehe, you were here as well. You're a part of, everyone followed the October 2020 NSAS protest. And we call it October 2020 because that was the day that the incident occurred, the one that was taken to ECOWAS court. And, we sort of all saw the videos on social media that was being streamed live, even though at some point many Nigerians were gaslit to imagine that they did not see what they saw. But I want you to react to the explanation that the Honorable Minister has given regarding the NSAS protest, the Zaria incident, and, how Nigerians have handled that and how the federal government has handled that as well.
The government has been asking for the sponsors of this October 1st nationwide protest.
August 1st?
And August 1st, yes. Thank you. August 1st to 10th End Bad Governance protest. I think Mr. Adebayo, Shittu, with due respect, is one of them. And he's sponsoring it by inciting Nigeria. When people make this sort of comments, with due respect to him, it's a way of provoking people, right? You don't deny things that are before you.
Inibehe,
even the Kaduna panel,
you are just promoting your own position, which is anti-government.
Sir, I do think that he has a right. I think that he has a right.
Sit here and allow him to make.
No, sir, you would have a right to respond.
No.
But he didn't interrupt you, sir. He didn't interrupt you, sir. Please, can we give him a chance to speak, and then you can have a right to respond.
Even the Kaduna panel, set up by Governor El-Rufai, confirmed that at least over 300 people were murdered in Zaria and found the army and the military culpable. That is Kaduna State government to their other official reports. He said nobody was killed in NSAS. The Lagos State government, even Sanwo-Olu himself, confirmed that not less than 90 people were killed. Not they did not tie it to the toll gate, but across Lagos State during the NSAS protest. Regarding the toll gate, the Commission of Inquiry set up the Judicial Commission of Inquiry, which I had the privilege of appearing with, led by Mr. Pusika Esen, who led us. I was part of the team of lawyers who represented the victims of who were attacked at the toll gate. Found that people were killed. So for anyone to still be living in denial that the NSAS protest was violent, it was crisis, that is just falsehood. The protest at the toll gate was entirely peaceful. People were singing, people were sitting on the floor, raising the national flag. The military forces was deployed to open fire on them. The videos are there. So let us stop this revisionist history.
If any such killings
right? The truth of the matter is that
people had the right to move
for can you hold on?
Yesterday, when Democrats have become today's dictators.
Let's avoid the outcome of the court
process. When they were in the opposition, Tinubu himself called for a revolution. Tinubu called for resignation of President Jonathan. Today, people make the same demands, and you say they are committing treason. And you are telling me I should not say that you are the one sponsoring the protest.
Inibehe.
You are sponsoring the protest by inciting Nigerians.
All right. Let's have the Honorable Minister respond. He did have some comments to make regarding what you have said.
Well, you see, as a lawyer, I know that when unjustifiable killings occur, people can go to court to ask for damages and all of that. I think we should avoid that rather than making statements, preempting such, legal processes. And I am warning us again, it is in the interest of Nigeria. If Nigeria burns, if what happened in Kenya is repeated in Nigeria, we will all suffer. Nigeria will be worse for it. So it is better to err on the path of caution. Let us preserve Nigeria. Let us preserve the peace of this country. I have said it earlier. We are all represented in the National Assembly. We cannot continue to take laws into our own hands and expect Nigeria to make progress. If there's no progress, if there's no peace, we would all continue to suffer. One thing I have seen about protests in many African countries, once people start protests, they insist that if you have a business, you must close your business on that day. If you have a shop, you must close your shop on that day. Right. There are millions of Nigerians who are daily earners. They cannot eat unless they go to the market on a daily basis. Yeah,
and those people in particular have had life completely worse for them in the last 1 year.
So the next thing is for you to recommend
I'm just saying that
going out
my point is, since we're concerned about them, we should also be concerned with the fact that life has become 100 or even more times worse.
I don't work for government.
Yeah, you didn't answer my question on petrol subsidy. You said earlier that
I don't work for government.
No, but you said that the president had ended petrol subsidy payments.
I mean, that was public knowledge. It was public knowledge.
But every other thing that I've claimed to be public knowledge, you have, disagreed with.
What I understand, I will comment on it. What I do not know, I will not.
So if you're not sure that the president has ended petrol subsidy, or you cannot comment on it, whether it has or not.
It was
okay. So you don't know whether the president has really ended petrol subsidy?
Did he not end it? Did he not announce when he was taking over government?
So are you confirming that he truly has ended subsidy?
If you're defending, if he not end it, would the prices of petrol have gone, up as it has gone up?
All right.
But there's still obviously, even from the former governor of Kaduna State, many people still say that Mr. President is still paying subsidy.
I don't know. I mean, he should give us the fact. Whoever is alleging must give evidence of it to prove.
Okay. I just want us to circle back very quickly on the conversation we've had about the protests, the lives. We talked about the NSAS protest. We talked about the Zaria incident. You served as a former honorable minister of the Federal Capital, Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Communications, yes.
Yes, former honorable minister of communications. Yeah. Looking at the protests, what happened in Lagos, what happened in Zaria, what would you say? And looking at all that has happened, what is the value of the Nigerian life?
Nigerian life?
Yes.
I mean, you are asking me what is like you're asking me what is the value of my life or your life or his life?
Our lives.
We are trying to, sustain ourselves, and we are trying to benefit as much as we can from a stable dynamic and progressive country, a country which is still in progress, because over the years, like I have said, we have not gotten the best. But I'm not hopeless about, I don't feel hopeless about our situation in Nigeria. And the benefit of having change of government every 4 years is to allow the people to decide whether the government has been serving their best interest. If they are convinced it has been serving their best interest, they vote for the government again, to retain it for another 4 years. If not, they vote the government out. And
in follow-up to what you had said earlier, that it's not necessarily about what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done, but some of the challenges that Nigeria has experienced in the past 30 years.
If you live in...
No, I haven't asked the question, okay, sir. I was going to say that if you say that it's also an offshoot of what has happened in the past 30 years, are you also saying that in some measure President Muhammadu Buhari is also to be blamed? And you served in, in his
I don't
cabinet.
shy away from blaming the Buhari government, because as a member of his campaign organization at that time, before he came in, I know we promised Nigerians that in the next 4 to 8 years, we were going to revive the refineries, the 4 government refineries, which had been, down for decades. Unfortunately, we never succeeded in doing that. I accept that, okay, that it is a failing of our government.
Is there anything, we're going to bring in, Inibehe, you're coming in a few seconds. I just want to ask, is there anything of the Buhari administration that you're proud of that your government achieved or your office?
I would say proudly,
yes,
that in the area of infrastructure development, no previous government had beaten their record.
Is that all? Is there anything else?
Is that not a sufficient thing to be proud of?
All right. Inibehe, please go ahead.
We had the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, for instance,
yeah,
which had been abandoned for more than 20 years before the Buhari administration came. They fixed it.
All right.
We have Lagos-Ibadan,
this is all still centered around infrastructure, but I want us, because there was nothing else to be mentioned besides the infrastructure development.
Well,
Inibehe, Effiong, please go ahead. We'd like to, get your...
too much in a hurry to, maybe
can you hold on?
Restrict my comments on.
No.
If you had said more,
do you know how many universities, for instance, were established during the Buhari administration? Before the Buhari administration came, no government...
Mr. Shittu, I beg your pardon. Is there any metric?
Well, according to...
Anyway, please go ahead.
According to a draft report presented by Mr. Wale Edo, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, sometime last month to the President, called Accelerated Stabilization and Advancement Plans. He revealed that the Tinubu administration in 2023, last year, spent about 3.6 trillion on fuel subsidy, and it is projected that by this year, they would have spent up to 5 trillion on fuel subsidy. We must find a way at this, as a country, to deal with government deception. When Tinubu announced the removal of subsidy on the 29th of May last year, there was no policy intelligence. He did not think about the immediate effect that was going to have on the country. So this argument that Tinubu has ended subsidy and we should all clap for him is just deception. Even the official pump price that they announced, I don't know how many fuel stations are buying at that price. Currently, as I said, in Lagos, we have fuel queues all over the place. Now, I think we have to also be honest with ourselves in this country. Nigerians have a constitutional right to protest. Mr. Shittu, as I said, is a senior lawyer. I respect him as my very learned senior, but I have a problem with his approach to these issues. He must accept that we have a right to protest. And for him, is he expecting people to go and protest in Sambisa Forest? Are we supposed to protest in the bush? Protests have to take place in public places. That is what it has always been. That is what it is all over the world.
All right,
even in the US, people protest at the White House.
Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your thoughts. But we do have to wrap up the conversation as we have to go on the break now. Thank you so much, Inibehe Effiong, for joining us. And we have with us the former Honorable Minister of Communication, Adebayo Shittu. Thank you for your time with us today.